I grew up in a very Christian home. My family was very active in our local church. We were there every Sunday morning for Sunday school, for worship, and then we would go back on Sunday nights, and then we would even be there on Wednesday nights. My dad would go out on visitation, and I remember that they told me whenever I was born in October that I was playing baby Jesus in the manger in December for the Christmas play. And so because of that, I was very acquainted with what the Bible teaches and all of the Bible stories, and I actually even learned my ABCs using Bible verses by memorizing the verses. It was a very, very religious family. And whenever I was 5 years old, I remember it was January 31st, 1982, we went to church on a Sunday night, and I remember that we were watching this video about the punishment for sin, and we were watching a video, and all I can remember is them talking about punishment for sin. And I remember whenever I came home that night after I had taken my bath and I was laying in my bed waiting for my dad to come in and tuck me in, that I remember asking my dad, "Hey Dad, how can I avoid punishment for my own sin?" And he then explained to me in the simplest of terms that Jesus came and that he died on a cross for my sin, and that he was buried and that he rose again, and that all I had to do was repent from my sins and accept his sacrifice on the cross and believe that he was the Son of God and that I could be saved from my sins. And so that night I remember telling my dad, well, that's exactly what I want. I want to be saved from my sins. And so my dad led me into a prayer time where we could do those things, where we repented of my sins, where we asked Jesus to forgive me of my sins, and we told him that I believe that Jesus died on the cross to pay for the penalty of my sins. And so I remember that night specifically. I can tell you exactly where we were on the planet, and I can tell you exactly what happened that night. And so I kept going to church as a Christian now and as a follower of Jesus, and nothing really changed. I just kept going to church. I kept having that same experience at church. And I grew up and I went to a Christian school, and I went to Christian elementary school, Christian middle school, Christian high school. And in high school, you know, it was like that normal kind of high school experience where we weren't bad kids, but we weren't really great kids either. We did those things that you hide from your parents, which, you know, you don't talk about in public. And then whenever I remember going, the week before I was going away to college, I got a scholarship. I wasn't actually going to college, I got a scholarship, and so I went up to a Christian university, and it was there during my first year that I began to see some people who, you know, were actually living out their faith, and they would study the Bible together, and they would talk about it, and they would pray together. And not that I didn't have those things in high school. I had a whole bunch of people who influenced me in high school, youth pastors and teachers and parents of my friends and my own parents. They all poured into me. But then whenever I went to college and I saw people who were taking their faith seriously, that's whenever I remember even increasing my commitment to Jesus. And since then, God has brought me on an incredible journey, a journey of calling me to ministry full-time, calling me overseas to the mission field, calling me back to the United States, and now serving in a local church. Things have not always been so smooth. Things have been bumpy, but I do know that I am a follower of Jesus, and I'm doing my best to do what he wants me to do, to follow him, living by faith and loving him each day and growing closer into the image of Jesus. And so that's my story. Do you have a story like that? I would love to hear your story. You can either send me an email, you can either put a comment below, you can make a video about it. I want to hear your story, and I want to see how God has brought you from death to life. And guess what? If you haven't quite gotten there yet, I still want to talk to you. Leave a comment below and let me know where you are in the journey, on your spiritual journey, and what I can do to help you get a little bit closer to Jesus every day.